See if he's all set.
Jimmy, we good?
All right, we're going to get going. Welcome to the December 10th Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. To my left is Mr. Carter Falk, who is the Deputy Planning Manager for the City of Nashua. Across the way, we have Mr. Nick Kanakis, Mr. Staffia Boris, Mr. Steve Lionel, who serves as our Vice President, Mr. Jack Currier, Ms. Marielle McKay, who serves as our Secretary, and I'm J.P. Boucher. I serve as your Chair. This meeting is recorded by written transcript, audio tape, and video. Please direct all testimony to the microphone, and we ask that only one person speak at a time. If you don't have tonight's copy of the agenda, you'll find it on the back table in the back of the auditorium. Tonight, we'll be hearing requests for deviations from the National Code in the form of applications for special exceptions and variances. I'll explain both of those. A special exception is a request that seeks permission to do something that the zoning ordinance permits only under special circumstances. There are 5 criteria required for this board to grant a request for a special exception. First, the requested use must be listed in the table of use regulations as a special exception. 2, the requested use will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. 3, the requested use will not overload any public water, drainage, sewer system, or any other municipal system such that areas of the city will be subjected to hazards affecting health, safety, or general welfare. 4, any special regulations for the use set forth in other sections of the zoning ordinance are fulfilled. And 5, the requested use will not impair the integrity or character of the district of adjoining zones, nor be detrimental to the health, welfare of the residents of Nashua. A variance is a request that seeks permission to do something that the ordinance does not permit. The 5 criteria that need to be established for the approval of a variance are: 1, the variance will not be contrary to public interest; 2, the spirit of the ordinance is observed; 3, substantial justice is done; 4, the values of surrounding properties are not diminished; and 5, the literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. Per the City of Nashua bylaws, a minimum of 3 or more affirmative votes are required to approve any application. In addition, this board will hear any and all scheduled cases as long as a quorum of 3 voting board members are present at this meeting. And we have a quorum tonight. Any citizen has the right to contest the decision that this board makes. Should we make a decision that you believe is an error, you have the right to request a rehearing. A written rehearing request must be received through Mr. Falk and the City of Nashua Planning Department within 30 calendar days from the day after a decision was made. Should this board not grant a rehearing request, you can file an appeal directly to the New Hampshire Superior Court, and you can contact Mr. Falk for more information on that. Per our approved Zoning Board of Adjustment bylaws, the review and decision of each application occurs in 2 parts. The first part is what we call the public hearing. This is where the applicant and citizens address this board and speak to the merits of the case. The order of testimony is as follows. The applicant will have 15 minutes to present their case. Then those in favor will have a limit of 5 minutes each to speak. Then those with opposition or with questions will have a limit of 5 minutes each to speak. Then the applicant has 5 minutes to speak in rebuttal. And then finally, a representative and only one person of those in opposition or with questions will have 5 minutes to speak in rebuttal. We ask that you direct all testimony to this board and not to anyone in the audience. If you have any questions about an application, they have to be directed to the board and we'll get them answered. Second part of tonight's meeting is called a public meeting. This is where the board debates the merits of the case amongst ourselves. Please note that during the public meeting, there is no testimony allowed from the audience. We ask that you silence your cell phones. If you need to have a conversation, we ask that you step out in the hallway. The auditorium has great acoustics, so we can hear everything that you're saying down there. Mr. Falk, are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
There's just one. The case for 6 Cannon Street has been withdrawn.
Okay, thank you. Tonight we have, there are 6 members sitting up here, so rules are that we have 5 voting members. Mrs. Staffia Boris and Mr. Nick Kanakis are alternate members. So we will alternate between both of those members, and we'll let you know which ones are voting on each case. They both have the ability to participate in our discussions in the public hearing and the public meeting portion of tonight's cases. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go to case number 1. Mr. Nick Kanakis is going to recuse himself, right, Mr. Kanakis?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So on case number 1, it will be Ms. Stafia Boras joining us in this case and voting. So case number 1 is Christos and Denise
Skumniotalis.
Skumniotalis. The applicant is GC Pizza Hut, 303 Main Street. Lot 100, sheet 100, lot 5, requesting the following variances for land use code section 190-41, section B, sections 4 and 5. 1, for a minimum stacking space length, 160 feet required, 86 feet proposed, and 2, for a minimum distance to a drive-through exit, minimum of 60 feet required, 31 feet proposed. This was tabled from the November 26, 2019 meeting. It's in the D3 MU zoning district. Again, all testimony that was taken at that meeting is on the record. So we'll continue from there. So give us your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Bob Duval. I'm an engineer with TF Moran. We're located in Bedford, New Hampshire. And this is a continuation of the hearing that we had a few weeks ago. And as I recall, the board asked that we provide some additional traffic data to help with their consideration of this case. It involves construction of a Pizza Hut restaurant with a drive-through pickup window, where the drive-through window is not a conventional fast food drive-through window, but it's just for picking up call-ahead orders that are prepaid. There's no transactions at the window other than handing a box out the window to the driver. We had talked about the trip generation to some extent last meeting, and I pointed out that the trip generation is fairly low, which is what makes this an ideal location for this use. It's a difficult location, and the board expressed some concern about traffic patterns, and particularly left turns in and left turns out. So we asked the applicant, the Pizza Hut operator, to provide us some additional traffic information. And after looking at a number of sites, they felt that the Merrimack location is probably the most appropriate site for this. As I mentioned last time, this is a bit of a new use where there is no indoor seating and just pickup, either walk-in pickup, drive-through pickup. There is some deliveries, and of course, some people will drive in and park. There's limited parking on site. We're providing spaces for 4 or 5 parked vehicles, but given the nature of the business, which is primarily prepaid, pre-ordered, and scheduled pickups, the turn of the parking space is very rapid. The turn of the drive-through is very rapid in particular. The drive-through turn is typically less than 30 seconds per vehicle. And I sent a letter that summarized the data that we were given for a peak day Friday, showing the hourly transactions. And they show the lunchtime peak there, which is really of less concern than the evening peak because of the volume of traffic on that through that intersection. And in the evening peak, which is 4 to 6 hours, you can see that the peak hour, the peak period of this generator is a total of 17 orders, and that's a combination of walk-ins, drive-in park, delivery, and of course the 6 next to it is the drive-through pickups. In terms of real numbers, the walk-ins and the deliveries tend to cancel out, and the actual number of drive-in expected during the peak hour is about half that number, or about 9 vehicles coming in, and then the drive-through is another 6. So we're talking a total activity leaving that site or entering that site of 15 cars in an hour. So that's 4 minutes between. The average turn at the window, as I pointed out, is 30 seconds. So what that means is those 6 drive-through vehicles will be spending about 30 seconds each, but even if we said a minute each at the window, that's 6 minutes out of that peak hour, which means that 54 minutes of the time they'll be queue-free at that window. So that's why we believe that it's reasonable and appropriate to grant the request for the variance regarding stacking space. 160 feet required based on a typical fast food drive-through. 86 is proposed, which is room for 4, actually, before it interferes with driveway or activity. And the maximum ever observed by the operator has been 2, and even 2 cars in a queue is rare. The other variance we're seeking is for the stacking exit space where 60 feet is required, 31 feet is proposed or allowed, I would say, by the existing configuration of the site. And we also believe this is reasonable because, number one, there's very little exiting traffic from this site. As we said, there's probably a total of about 15 in the peak hour exiting traffic. That's 1 per 4 minutes. I've been through this site myself a couple of times since we last met to see what the conditions are like between in the evening peak hours in the essentially the 4 to 6 range. And I've never had to wait exiting that site for more than 2 minutes, and that's waiting for a sizable gap. In other words, I wasn't looking to dart out at my first opportunity, but I was waiting for a reasonable gap to make that left turn movement. And it's quite easy to make the left turn movement into the left turn lane because that lane clears immediately after the Lake Street through traffic goes. So the Lake Street through traffic goes, and essentially there's no queue yet on Lake Street. Then that left turn lane clears, and you can turn back into the site. We talked about access to the parking spaces. That's easy. And you can also, by going west on Lake Ave, you can also head north. It does make a little bit more effort to make a left turn northbound on Main Street, but it is possible. Again, I've never had to wait more than 2 minutes watching that in the few times I've been there. The traffic falls off very quickly as you approach 6 o'clock as well, northbound. And the southbound traffic is sparse. There's a lot of southbound gaps. The northbound traffic is reasonable, does provide enough gaps after that movement starts to go. And there's also very little traffic coming out westbound of the shopping center. So I think a traffic study is going to show that these are all reasonable levels of service, A, B type levels of service to make these moves. And for that reason, we believe it's reasonable to allow this use on this site, and that the stacking exit space was not going to have to accumulate a lot of vehicles. We talked also about maybe restricting the right lane or even both lanes to right turn only. That would, if your ultimate destination is north or west, that would mean you would have to turn right and then make a left at the Main Street Shopping Center entrance, then come back up through the shopping center. But once you do that, you're at a signalized intersection. Again, you have, full access to the street network. So in short, I see no real traffic safety issues with this restaurant in this location. And I think these variances are appropriate to the nature of the restaurant. And I would really ask this board to allow us to move to the planning board, and where a traffic study would be reviewed by city staff. And I think we can hone in on the safety of these issues that we're talking about here, and work out whatever combination of restricted turns or restricted times makes the most sense. The applicant's willing to work with the city in that regard. But we simply ask that based on the information that we've submitted and my personal experience as a traffic engineer at this site, I do not see any untoward traffic safety hazards associated with this development. I don't think the requested variances introduce any safety hazards. So I would ask this board to look favorably on these requests and allow us to move ahead with the application.
All set? Any questions? Mr. Correa?
Just a question about, your testimony that this drive-through only is, a lot less than a traditional restaurant. With the idea that variances are granted with the land, would you be okay with a stipulation that says, if this board were inclined to approve, I don't know where anybody sits on the matter, that the shortages, you might say, of the stacking and the exit are conditional on a pickup, transactionless only pizza business?
Yeah, we'd absolutely be comfortable with that. That is the intention. That's, for this particular applicant, that's their business model, and they're not looking to do anything different. And I think it makes sense to restrict the site to that, in that way.
Okay. It's the only question I had at the moment.
And again, just to review, when a potential customer comes through for a pickup, they're driving right to the window, correct?
That is
Right,
correct.
so there's no talk box or whatever you call it, there's no calling out, I'm here to pick up pizza or anything. I'm just driving right to that window.
That's right. There's a signage at the entrance that would show drive-through lane and a parking lane, and those who are doing the pickups would just get into that leftmost lane and go straight to the window.
Okay, and then going over your data from the Merrimack location, the busiest time frame was in that 7 PM time frame for the drive-through and for the walk-in. So again, at 10 vehicles per hour, right? We're talking about it about every 6 minutes there. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Where's the Merrimack location? I'm just curious. I'm just trying to figure, I don't really not familiar with that, with the
I
pizza.
think it's on 101A, essentially, in the Merrimack line, I think.
No,
One by
I
Home,
think it's.
there's one by
it's-
Home Depot up the hill. I'm not sure if that's the one.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't know the
I don't know if
exact
that's a
location. I had the
takeout one
address,
like
but
that.
it's flipping mine.
I was just curious because if it is 101, then, I can see where that could be way busier than this in a way. Okay. Mr. Lino?
If somebody, a customer arrives at the store and their pizza is not ready yet, I mean, how would they learn that and what would they do?
Well, they would be told at the window, sorry, you're early, or we're late, whatever the case may be. Can you please come back in 10 minutes? And then they would exit the site. And as I talked about, if the traffic was light, they can fairly readily make that U-turn around the block, so to speak. Alternatively, they can make the right turn and go into the shopping center and either do some shopping there or just come back out and make a left in off of Lake.
I would think that most customers would try to say, well, let me park here and wait for it until it's ready.
They have an opportunity, I think what Mr. Lionel is saying is that they can leave the site or they can go, it's hard from the drive-through, but to go back around and park, obviously, on the site and kind of wait, right, the 5 or 10 minutes and get back into the line, right? Or get
Right.
back to the window.
Those are the two opportunities, and I was specifically looking to see if that was reasonable to expect someone to do that. And by my own observation, because of the way those lights cycle, it's easy to get into that left lane after it clears, and then after that, the next phase is for Lake Avenue to clear. So you make that left, Lake Avenue is just cleared, so it's empty, and it's very easy to make the left turn back into the site. The whole process takes a couple minutes.
Just want to clarify, in Merrimack, the Pizza Hut is what you were saying in front of the Home Depot on 101-ish, in front of the Home Depot
Yeah.
on 101A.
In front of it by Dunkin' Donuts. Awesome PC connection.
Any other questions? Is there any other questions? I think we're all set.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none. Anybody with questions, concerns, or opposition to this application? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Currier.
Well, as I mentioned in the question, if this were what I might call a traditional takeout, say, or Dunkin' Donuts or something, I'd be hard pressed to allow underage on these two criteria, but it is, in my experience, a totally novel way where there's no placing an order and no cash transaction or running a credit card at the window. So given the testimony, I mean, I'm taking that as that's the way it's gonna be. I think there is a lot quicker movement through there. So from those two aspects, I'm okay with it. The left turn, I'm feeling like if this board were to approve it, we should leave that to the planning board. That would be my thought. I mean, I feel the testimony is credible, you know, because I go through there, and when it goes left turn signal for Lake Street, it's left turn the other way to get into the plaza, and there's not many, so there's no traffic coming at you, so you can, as soon as that left turn clears, you could get out into the left turn lane. So I see that as happening. I guess the only concern I had was if this were to be approved, I'd certainly want a stipulation so that if the business were to change, it wouldn't automatically go with the same business. And I do have a bit of concern what Steve mentioned. I think people are going to show up early and their pizza's not going to be ready. And, you know, I guess it looks like it would be a struggle to get over into the parking area. But then again, if it doesn't seem like there might be a line behind you, if you could just back up a little bit, you could get over there and park, and it wouldn't be a problem. Because I think to try to circle, you know, kind of do a counterclockwise circle on the Main Street, Lake Street, and get back in, if that were the routine, that would be kind of crazy. I mean, it's doable, but I don't think we should plan for that way. So with the stipulation, I'm favorable to it, but I'm also could be swayed with other opinions here.
I've looked at it, obviously, several times too, and understanding more of the business. Like you, I was kind of questioning the exiting, just start with that. I think that in a traditional sense, when we look at drive-throughs, I think that would have been more of a concern. You know, this site I don't think would have worked for like a Dunkin' Donuts, but I think when we look at those things, we're kind of really looking at kind of that stuff also. But again, I think on this site, in the model that's being proposed, I'm thinking like you have, I don't think there is a major issue, but I think that would be, I think, a perfect thing for the planning board to take up on this site. Also, again, I was thinking about, hey, the pizza's not ready. If they have to go around, they have to go around. If they can get a parking spot, at that point, maybe I just walk in and get my pizza at that point, right? Walk into and say, hey, you know, I'm here to get my pizza, instead of trying to get back in line if I see cars there, you know, so. So that's kind of where I'm at. So I think with what's been shown here and what's been presented, I know that sometimes we like to see a little bit more detail on kind of how cars are going to flow, but like you said, this is not a traditional fast food type of restaurant pickup. So I think that if, like you said, if we can put some type of stipulation in there that kind of limits this to this type of a pickup type business, I think I'd be in favor of the application. Mr. Lionel?
I concur with Mr. Courier and Mr. Boucher. The one part that really troubled me was relating to the question that I asked about what happens if a customer goes to the window and their order's not ready, and what do they do? And you know, but it looks like the traffic level is going to be low enough that that's not going to be a difficult problem. I agree that there should be a stipulation that that this would continue only if the same sort of business were to be done at that site.
Thank you. Mrs. McKay?
I concur with my fellow board members. I too was concerned about making the left, or if someone comes for a pizza, but human nature being human nature, they're gonna look, if there's nobody behind them, they're either gonna back up and swing backwards into that parking place, or they'll head in, park, and then just go inside. So, and with the stipulation, I think that that would be okay. So I can support this.
Ms. Boris?
I concur with my colleagues. They've said everything that was concerning to me as well, so I'm in favor.
All right, thank you.
Make a motion?
Yes, please, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion on behalf of Christos and Denise Skumniadalis. Again, the address is 303 Main Street, a proposed Pizza Hut. And the request is for minimum stacking space. The requirement is 160 feet. What's proposed is 86. And the minimum distance to a drive-through exit, the minimum in the Nashua zoning is 60 feet, and what's proposed is 31 feet. And again, this is in Ward 6 in the D3 mixed-use zone. And I make a motion to approve both of these variances. I believe, well, I'll start off with a stipulation. After hearing the testimony, the board has, I think, unanimously agreed that a stipulation is in order because this business presents itself as a non-traditional drive-through business. So the stipulation would be that there's no orders placed at the drive-through and that there's no cash or credit card transactions at the drive-through. And per the testimony of the applicant, it is merely a pickup, a pizza situation at the window, which the board finds would be much faster and not tie up the drive-through and create problems at the entrance or the exit. So with that stipulation, well, that is a stipulation that I put on this motion. I think the board finds that with that stipulation, the variance, thank you, I didn't have that handy. I think the board finds that, given the special conditions of the property, which I'd also like to point out, it is an existing restaurant without a drive-through. I think the board finds that the applicant could not continue or have this business present if this variance was not applied. I think with the stipulation, the board finds it's within the intent of the ordinance, the spirit and intent of the ordinance. I think the board finds there's no impact on property values of surrounding parcels. I think the board finds it with the stipulation it's not contrary to public interest and substantial justice is served. So with that, this motion is.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Lionel. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of this motion? That's 5-0. Congratulations, motion passes. Just be aware that there's that 30-day window of appeal. Thank you. Okay, with that, I'll close the public meeting for case number 1. Mr. Kanakis is going to rejoin us. And we're going to go to case number 2. And in case number 2, Mr. Kanakis will be the voting member, and Mr. Boris will participate. So I'd like to open the public hearing for case number 2. It's for Jessica and Carl Ingraham, 6 Carroll Street. The description is Jessica and Carl Ingraham, owners 6 Carroll Street. Sheet 138, lot 74, requesting the following. 1, special exception from the Land Use Code, Section 190-15, Table 15-1, Number 3, to allow an accessory in-law dwelling unit.
We did that one last time.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
We're doing just the
We're
variance.
just doing the variance.
Just the variance, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. So it's only, tonight, we're only going to look at the variance. So it's for the variance from Land Use Code, Section 190-32, Section B, Section 1, to exceed maximum size of an accessory dwelling unit, 750 square feet permitted, 1,000 8 square feet, proposed to construct a second-story addition for an accessory dwelling unit onto an existing home. It's in the R9 Zone, Ward 1. This was, the special exception was approved at the November 26, 2019 meeting, and we tabled the variance till this evening so that the applicant could come back in and provide some more information for us. So,
It is less than the 1,008 square feet.
okay.
I think you all hopefully got a drawing or something.
Well, we, yeah,
They got that.
there's a drawing, but it's not clear what the new square footage is.
So on the,
Okay, so why don't you give us your name and address, and you can tell us what that new square footage is and what you've done differently.
Jessica Ingraham, 6 Carroll Street. And so I moved the second bedroom over, so that's now part of the main living space. And moved the kitchen wall over, which makes it the 750 square feet. But it's really not ideal because the kitchen's now cut in half, and it makes a closet that's 8 by 9. So I'm proposing to keep the kitchen wall out, and it would be 864 square feet.
I'm sorry, could you walk me through that one more time? I'm sorry.
So it says office, I moved that over.
Okay,
Now that's part of the main living space.
So, Mr. Currier, I don't think we didn't get the new drawing in the package. It wasn't an email sent out, the attachment wasn't on there. I talked to Mr. Fox this afternoon, I don't think we have the updated drawing. You don't have a drawing, do you?
Submitted, though.
I have the drawing if you want to look at it.
All right.
I just don't
Would
have
you
copies
mind,
of it.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
could you grab it there now?
Just give us a second, we'll just take a quick look at it, and
That's fine.
just to get a better perspective.
That's what we'll be comparing it to.
Because it looks like it's only a 2.5 by 12.
So what have we got here? So reduction in square footage was about 150 feet, 150 square feet less?
Yeah, I went down to 864, I believe.
So that, the old one was this, so this is kind of knocked out of the equation. And so it's gone from the whole second floor to, looks like that much of the second floor.
Yep.
So it's down from the 1,008 to 864.
She says without cutting kitchen, does that mean?
Well, I think that if, I'm assuming that if she were to say to cut back more, it would, you'd just bring this wall over here, because this seems to be the, you're gonna have to have an entrance, I guess, or the wall would come in here. So, just to clarify, like, if you had to hold to the 750, you'd be, with like, where the corner of the office is, where you have 2.5 feet, you'd have to have a wall go, is that where you put a wall up?
Yeah.
And it would, and your testimony is that that would be an unusually shaped kitchen, like an
Right.
L shape.
So I put the dotted line there to, I would still have a small closet, but not another room,
Oh, that's what this
and
is,
keep the kitchen extended.
Okay.
I think.
We'll give this back to you. Do you need this?
No.
Well, we'll give it back to you when you're done.
Okay.
Okay. Does anybody need to refer to it? Anything else?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Is there any further questions?
No.
Need to refer to this, or again?
No, I just That, the one that's in front of us, that's the one, Mr. Falk, that you got, right? That's
Yeah.
the same, okay. So 864 is the proposal, okay.
One bedroom. Oh, two bedroom, no, one bedroom.
Yeah. Any other questions for the applicant? No? None? Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just have a seat for a moment and we'll see who else. Does anybody else in the audience like to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none. Anybody with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. I think the applicant heard us. Again, I was in a different position, but in the previous meeting, because again, my position was the applicant's gonna put a whole second story in addition on the house. And my position was that I didn't think that anybody would see the difference from the street. But I do appreciate, again, the comments that were made by the members here and other members that were not here that evening, again, about, you know, the reason for this, and for the in-law apartments and stuff. So, again, considering the layout of the house, what was for us, and then what's being done now, I think this is a reasonable request. And again, I'll support this request at 864 square feet.
Yeah.
Ms. McKay?
And like Mr. Boucher, I had the same impression the last time, and she conservatively reduced it, and I don't have a problem with this application whatsoever. I'm in favor of it.
Mr. Currier?
I am feeling that if the applicant was held to the 750, given that, even though it's a whole new second floor, you know, given the proposed staircase and the entrance, and to make that match with the house, I think it would be skinnying down the design of the kitchen too much. And I've been persuaded that with the 864, you know, that the variance is worth it. I appreciate the applicant taking a hard look and bringing the number down and getting it closer to what the ordinance is. I'm okay with it.
Mr. Lionel?
I concur with Mr. Courier. I'm more comfortable with this than the previous request, and I think it's reasonably within the spirit and intent of the ordinance.
Thank you.
I
Mr.
agree as
Kourakis?
well. Much more comfortable with the request now that it's down at the 864. It's much easier to agree with it at this point.
Okay. Ms. Porras?
I approve.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your input. Does anybody want to make a motion? Mr. Currier?
I make a motion on behalf of Jessica and Carl Ingraham at 6 Carroll Street. The request before us tonight is a variance from Land Use Code 190-32, which states that the maximum size of an accessory dwelling unit is 750 square feet. The request before us tonight is 864 square feet. I'll just clarify that's down from the original request of 1,008 square feet. I believe the board finds that this variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions, which is when the proposed second floor goes on, that if the 750, if the applicant held to that, it would make for a very stressed design and unusually shaped kitchen. And so with that, I think the board finds that the applicant, the benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other reasonably feasible method other than the variance for 864 square feet. And I think the board finds that this is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance, that the 864 feet variance will not adversely affect property values of surrounding parcels. I think the board finds it's not contrary to public interest and substantial justice is served. So again, I make a motion to approve the variance at 864 square feet.
Seconded by Ms. McKay. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's 5-0. Congratulations, ma'am. Your motion's carried and your variance is approved. Okay, with that, I'll close case number 2 and open case number 3. Case number 3, the voting member will be Ms. Boris. I'd like to open the public hearing again for case number 3 for Barrington Village Condo Association. Applicants Robert Prokop, 10 and 30 Barrington Ave. Descriptions Barrington Village Condominium Association, owner Robert Prokop, applicant 10 and 30 Barrington Ave, sheet B, lot 56, requesting a special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-112, Section B, to work in the 75-foot prime wetland buffer of Salmon Brook to remove 7 trees. It's in the PRD/R18 zoning district. Welcome. Give us your name and address, please.
Good evening and happy holidays.
Thank
My
you.
name is Bob Prokop. I'm a New Hampshire certified wetland scientist and wildlife biologist from Wetland Consulting Services, 15 Bisson Lane in Merrimack, Massachusetts, not New Hampshire. I'm here representing Barrington Village. And as you mentioned, we're looking to, the association, rather, is looking to cut 7 trees at the outer limit of the 75-foot no disturb zone or buffer zone to Salmon Brook. Originally, we met, or the condominium development, which has approximately 60 units, was constructed around the year 2000, 2001. At that time, granite markers were installed at the limit of the 75-foot buffer. And since that time, the association has honored the no disturb zone, so they've kept the mowing outside of the buffer zone, they've done no clearing, et cetera. But when the 75-foot no disturb zone was marked, a number of the units, many of the units, were probably within 20 to 25 feet of the edge of that no disturb zone, leaving a very small area lawn. Since 2001, where there hasn't been any cutting, trees, of course, continue to grow, and a number of trees turned out to be a potential hazard to the association. So I walked the perimeter of the site with association members, and we originally marked, we actually tagged 40 different trees. Each was tagged, numbered, and the size of the tree was measured. That's shown on figure 1 in your package. If I can refer to this, if you don't mind. So we had 40. This is the Barrington Village Condominium Association, accessed off of Barrington Ave, and the whole perimeter around the site is forested. There's a Salmon Brook to the south. And we tagged, again, which is shown in green on my little sketch here. I don't know if you can see it on your plan. Those were the 40 original trees we tagged and measured, each one of them. After meeting with conservation, it was determined that perhaps we could limit the tree cutting to only 7 of the original 40 trees. And we agreed to that with the only stipulation that some of the other trees that are in the 75-foot no disturb zone, instead of being cut, would simply be limbed. In other words, the hazardous branches would be cut off the tree, but the tree would remain. And this would be, the extent of the cutting would be supervised by an arborist. Conservation agreed with this. Actually, they recommended this approach. So again, we limited the trees to just 7 that would be cut. 6 of them are white pine trees, and there's 1 red oak tree. And the size of the trees proposed for cutting are in your package, along with photographs, I think, of most of the trees. So all the trees remain marked. They're all marked, numbered, and markings are still in place. The one question that came up with conservation was, should we do a replanting plan for the trees to be cut? And if you can see from some of the photographs, there's a fairly dense forest already present at the outer limit of the 75-foot no disturb zone. Most of it is occupied by the same species of trees we want to cut, mostly white pines. Many of them are sapling-sized trees. And in the approach or the consideration that conservation felt, and we agreed with it, that there's already a dense woody understory present, that it was be pointless to try to replant the trees that would be cut. Once these 7 trees are cut, the younger trees and saplings would simply begin to grow, because that would give them the additional sunlight they would like to have, which basically right now, if you consider that their growth is somewhat stunted. So the conservation and we agreed that there would be no need to provide a planting plan to replace the 7 trees that are cut. All 7 trees are at the outermost limit of the 75-foot no disturb zone. Again, these are the ones most likely to pose a threat to the residences, which are within 20 feet or so of the trees to be cut. Work would be done primarily using a crane. Licensed landscapers would cut the trees, lift them up over the units, stack what they could into logging trucks. The rest of the branches would all be hauled into the parking area of the condominium development, and then they would be wood chipped and carted off. The tree stumps would be left in place. There'd be no disturbance to the root. There'd be virtually no disturbance to the ground, hence we haven't proposed any erosion control. And it would look to be a fairly clean operation. Take a little while to do. And the condominium association would like to have approximately 2 years to determine, actually to get the funds together to do this, hire the proper person to do it, and the proper company to oversee the cutting. So in summary, again, we're looking to cut 7 trees at the outer limit of the 75-foot no disturb zone. We would limb other trees, but not cut the trees down. And we are, at this time, not proposing any replacement trees. We just don't think it's necessary. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions? Wetland special conditions, you aware of those?
Boy, I hope so. I have 5 questions. I hope.
Well, there's 9 special conditions.
Let's see.
I can
got
give you a
here.
copy of that. We just need positive verification for you that these will be met. It's just it's just part of what we have to go
I'm
through.
sorry, I haven't done this forever.
It's okay. I'm sure you've already reviewed these, but we just need, just go ahead to the mic and you can, I think you'll find those familiar.
Okay, number 1, the use cannot reasonably be avoided. Trees are in place. They're there. We've tried to minimize the number of trees we're going to, once again, reasonably be avoided. The trees are there. The units are there. There's only a distance of 20 feet, and we're proposing to cut the minimum number of trees possible. The least damaging, best practical alternative, we reduced the tree cutting from 40 down to 7 trees. Mitigation, acceptable mitigation, with the discussion with conservation, we're not proposing any mitigation because there's sufficient vegetation there to take over for the lost trees. Necessary for productive use of the adjoining buildable land. Not looking to build any new structures, everything is in place. This is simply a maintenance feature to protect the existing structures that are there. No rare and endangered species, natural heritage, has no documentation of any rare or specific species that's in your package. They have no impact. Erosion control, number 6. Again, we're not proposing erosion control simply because we're not going to be disturbing the ground. All the trees will be left, the tree stumps will be left in place. The proposed activity shall not impact or impair wetland capacity for wildlife and fisheries functions. The wetlands lie at least 75 feet or close to 75 feet from where the tree cutting will occur. It's It's high up on the bank, it's well, I guess I'm gonna jump ahead here, but I won't bother. There's such a dense growth of vegetation already. There'll be plenty of nesting habitat for those species that want to nest in large white pine trees. But there's sufficient vegetation that neither fisheries nor upland wildlife should have any significant impact from the southern tree cutting. Project should not impair the stability of the water body's bank. Again, this project, this activity is going to occur well upslope of the bank to Salmon Brook. We're talking roughly 70 feet from Salmon Brook. Wetland buffer functions of absorption capacity and storage shall not be impaired. Again, we're simply cutting trees. There's going to be no impervious surface installed. Flood storage won't be affected in any way. In fact, this might even, basically no impact. And it's, and then Conservation Commission findings. I actually have not received their official report. Hopefully you guys have.
We have a letter of recommendation. So,
Okay, thank you, sir.
all right, so thank you for testing to all that.
Oh, sure, sorry.
And, excuse me, Mr. Correa.
You know, when this, units that went in about 2000 and 2001.
Correct.
Were the trees significantly smaller than they are now? My recollection was that it was pretty much mature and is pretty much the same now as then, or is that not the case, that they've been growing over?
I don't know what it looked like 18 years ago or so. But given that the trees now pose a threat, I mean, there's going to be growth. It might not be great growth, but over time, any tree is going to get bigger. And I cannot say what they looked like 18 years ago, but
Yeah.
for whatever reason, the conservation, the association, condominium association, has felt that the trees are now starting to become a hazard. Apparently, there was one instance that I was told of a year or two ago where a large limb did fall off one of the not necessarily one of the trees they're cutting, but it did fall off of one of the units and created significant damage, actually punctured through the roof. So, but, you know, given that trees grow, it's inevitable that that they're going to get larger, pose a threat. Most likely in another 10 years or 15 years, someone else, probably not me, will be before you again looking to cut a few more trees. Because as, you know, once you get rid of the older ones, the younger ones start to sprout. So,
I guess the other question I have is, I think you mentioned that the foundation was about 20 or 25 feet from the conservation line. Because I couldn't look around back, and it was a little hard from the map. I was just curious how far ballpark.
I think you said from the edge of the 75-foot edge of the buffer.
Yeah, where the non-disturb zone is. I was just curious about how far that was from the structures.
I have a
Thought
few.
you said 25 feet, but it
Well,
was.
roughly, it varies. I do have some additional photos I could give you, if you don't mind. No, wait a minute.
But I guess where I was just curious, with being that you do this for a living, what do you think a reasonable, it does not really have anything to do with this case,
Yeah.
but what would you throw out as a reasonable distance between a non-disturb zone and
Well-
structures?
Well, they've actually have a minimum space, 20 to 25 feet. If that, it's even less in spaces. So we're talking a dense growth of trees and a lot of saplings and shrubs growing there. Immediately, right where the concrete, the granite markers are, then there's approximately, maybe no more than 25 feet, but even less. Some cases, it's as close as 10 feet. So in that area is just lawn, simply for people to be able to walk into, quote, what little backyard they have. They have kept, or when they built this development, in my opinion, they have essentially left as much undisturbed land as you could reasonably fit in for a development of this size. Typically, nowadays, you would probably see, quote, backyard areas, maybe 50 feet of lawn area. This is the absolute minimum, I think, that you could put in a development. Again, I had no design, I was not involved with the original design. And like most developers, they probably want to maximize as many units as they could. So they squeezed in a lot in there. But they've left almost no area between the units and the actual buffer zone. Frankly, it would have been nice, I think, if there was more open space, in other words, lawn. They could have done a planting plan, because I would have recommended a different set of vegetation to be planted if there was space. Because what you'd like to do is, because all the forested area there, it's basically all the same, a white pine dominated forest. I would like to see a little more diverse a component to it if there was space to do it. And that would have been to plant or create what they call edge, more edge, which you could use more productive plant species. There's a common term called the edge effect, where the edge of different habitat types is ultimately more valuable sometimes than the actual habitat that's bordering that forest, in this case, a white pine forest. But there's no space for it without doing a massive clearing of the existing no disturb zone. So I think in general, the developer, when he built the units, effectively did protect as much of the remaining land which was allowable at the time. He built on what he could, and he absolutely minimized any potential impacts beyond the footprint of the development.
All right,
So,
thanks.
I don't know, I kind of rolled on a bit there, I think. Would you like these photos, or would you like to see these? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, thank you.
I'm all set. I mean, you had, all the photos of the
Yes.
trees were in the package here.
Right. And I provided some new ones just in case, but it's not going to show anything different, really.
I'm good.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. You can have a seat. Does anybody else in the audience like to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none. Anybody have questions, concerns, or opposition with this application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Carter.
I feel that Mr. Prokop's application is thorough and speaks for itself. I follow along with the progress of the application. I would have thought, like the staff, that the original plan was too much of a cut, and I'm good with the proposal as it is, and for all the reasons stated. I'll leave it at that.
I'll also support the application, which is pretty thorough. Ms. McCann.
I too will support the application based on what both of you have said. And actually, the applicant was, the engineer, Mr. Prokop, was extremely informative, and he was clear. He was definitive. I will support it.
Thank you. Mr. Lionel?
I'll also support it, although I did note his comment, which I had figured that they may be back before us again at some time in the future, because those little saplings will grow up, but that's for another time.
Yes. Ms. Boris?
I'm also in support of the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Everybody make a motion? Mr. Carter? Oh, Mr. Lionel, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion on behalf of the owner, Barrington Village Condo Association. Applicant is Robert Prokop. The address of the owner is 10 to 30 Barrington Avenue. Barrington Village Condominium Association, Sheet B, Lot 56, requesting special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-112, Section B, to work in the 75-foot prime wetland buffer of Salmon Brook to remove 7 trees. This is in the PRD/R18 zone. This exception is listed in the table of uses. The board finds that it will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. It should actually improve possible pedestrian safety along the back of the buildings. It will have no effect on public water, drainage, or sewer or other municipal systems. The special regulations are fulfilled. There are 9 special conditions, and we have testimony that all of those will be fulfilled. We have a recommendation from the City Conservation Commission for this work. And the board believes this will not impair integrity or be out of character with the neighborhood or be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare of residents. Therefore, I make a motion to approve the special exception.
Second by Ms. Boris. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 5-0. Congratulations, motion's been approved. Just be aware of that 30-day window of appeal. Okay, thank you. With that, I'll close the public meeting for case number 3. I'd like to open the public hearing for case number 4. This is for DCHCO LLC. Mary Ann, thank you, the Chico, 383 Main Dunstable Road. The applicant is requesting a variance from Land Use Code, Section 190-264, to exceed a maximum accessory use area, 40% permitted, 68.6% proposed, to construct a 400-square-foot in-ground swimming pool. It's in the R9 zone. Welcome. Just give us your name and address for the record.
Mary Ann DeChico, 381 Main Dunstable Road.
Hey, go ahead, just tell us what you want to do.
My grandkids want a pool, so we'd like to put one in. It's not a very big pool.
Okay.
There's plenty of room for it. I don't know.
No, it was just kind of weird at this time of the year for a pool,
I know,
for
I
us to
know.
see a pool. It's just, somebody must be getting a good deal.
We tried to get in earlier. I didn't realize we'd need one because there was a pool there prior
Okay,
that they filled in, so I didn't know.
okay. Okay, Mr. Curry, Mr. Falk.
Yeah, they're allowed the 40% accessory use area, and like they said, there was a pool there before, it was filled in, it hasn't been operable, so to us, that use is really gone, it's no longer there, and to reestablish it, they are here before the board for the variance for the accessory use area.
And just to clarify, the garage or slash business eats up,
Right,
is
large
included
part
in
of
that.
it.
So a large part of the 40 is consumed by the existing garage, right?
That's true.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, pretty straightforward. I mean, I'm not gonna cut you off, it's pretty straightforward. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Oh, we have letters from our 2 neighbors saying that they have no problem with it.
All right, if you want
Have
to,
those? Yeah, could we
Yeah.
take a look at those?
yeah, can we have those? Mr. Falk will take those, and I will address those in a minute. There any more questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay,
Me.
Not,
all right.
nope,
No questions? And again, to be clear, Mr. Kanakis is voting on this case. Are you all set, Mr. Kanakis? Okay, I think we're all set for right now. You can have a seat.
Okay.
We have 2 letters for this case in support, dated December 10th. 2 whom may concern. I am Rachel Lively, and I currently reside at 379 Main Dunstable Road in Nashua. My husband, Christopher, and I have lived with our family here since August 2015. We've had the pleasure of knowing Bruce Hanson and Mary Ann DeChico since they have lived across the street on Trombley Circle. We were happy for them to become our neighbors over the past year. Bruce and Mary Ann have worked hard to fix up the property and make it a wonderful environment for their family. We strongly support their desire to install an in-ground pool on their property and have no major concerns with such a project going in next door to us. Thank you for your time. Rachel and Christopher Lively of 379 Main Dunstable Road. We have another letter dated the 9th of December, to whom it may concern. My name is Donna Demers. I live at 383 Main Dunstable Road, Nashua. I am the next door neighbor to Mary Ann DeChico. I'm not opposed to Mary Ann DeChico putting in a pool in her backyard. Thank you, Donna Demers. Those will be entered to the record. Is there anybody else who would like to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none. Anybody with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Lino.
I have no objection to this. We see a lot of these where you have a smaller house on a large lot, and we have this, also this business building that eats up the accessory usage, so I think this is fine.
Thank you, Mr. Courier.
I'm in support of it also. I mean, in getting the application, it gave me a little bit of pause because it seemed like it was a large request and there, with the business, was it a busy property and could it be, disruptive to the neighborhood? But realizing that there was a pool there, it's a busy street. When I went by, I'm like, oh, I know I've been by this before. I used to live out that way. And I don't think, my sense was that having that overage and having a pool there wouldn't be an issue at all on the surrounding parcels. And we obviously have that testimony tonight, so it kind of shores that up for me, so I'm good with it as it's proposed.
I'm also in support of the application. Again, discussion in the points that Mr. Lionel had brought out also. Ms. McKay?
I too am in support for everything that's been said, and I can sincerely understand having grandparents ask for something or grandchildren ask you for something, and grandparents certainly want to comply. So I have no problem with this.
Thank you. Mr. Kanakis?
I'm in support as well. There's a space for it back there, and the pool itself is really only 13% of the 40% that you're allowed, so I think it's a reasonable use.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Anybody want to make a motion? Mr. Courier?
I'll make a motion on behalf of the owner is DCHCO LLC. The applicant is Mary Ann DeChico. And our case here has 383 Main Dunstable, Mr. Falk, but I
It should be
believe it's
381,
381. I think it was just a
Yeah.
typo.
This wasn't the ad. This is
Okay.
just for you guys, so.
Okay,
the
great,
ad was
yeah.
381.
So the ad is 381, and I'll read in the address is 381. And again, as a request from variance from Land Use Code 190-264, which limits the accessory use area to 40%. The request is for 68.6% to construct a 400-square-foot in-ground swimming pool. I believe the board finds a variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property, which by testimony, there was a previously existing pool there for probably many years before it got filled. And that to basically have another pool in the same place, I think the board finds is reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue. The board finds it's within the spirit and intent of the ordinance to allow this overage of accessory use area. The board finds it will not adversely affect property values of the surrounding parcels. It's not contrary to public interest and substantial justice is served. And again, I make a motion to approve as presented.
Seconded by Mr. Kanakis. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It's 5-0. Congratulations, your application's been approved. Just be aware of that 30-day window of appeal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. With that, I'll close the public meeting for case number 4 and open the public hearing for case number 5. Case number 5 is Gogan Family Revocable Trust, Kenneth Gogan, 6 Lee Street, requesting a special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-15, Table 15-1, Number 3, for an accessory in-law dwelling unit inside the existing house. It's in the RA zoning district. Please give us your name and address, and
Hello,
welcome.
my name is Ken Gogan. I live at 6 Lee Street in Nashville. We are asking just to take the existing finished square footage in our basement and convert it into an in-law suite for my son. We are his guardians and will be his guardians for life. We're trying to give him some adult space. The only increase in square footage is going to be adding a bathroom area to the area. We believe we meet all the zoning criteria. When we finished the place, when we built the place, we put an ample ventilation and windows. We have egress. Originally when we finished it, the fire department all came in and blessed it. We're just looking to put a bathroom in so he can be a young man. And no impact to the outside whatsoever, no change, plenty of parking, no change in traffic. He lives with us now. And we'll be, well under the 750 square feet. That's about it.
Good, that's good. Thank you very much. Hold on.
Questions, sir?
Hold on. Are there any questions for the applicant?
Not for me.
No. All right, pretty straightforward.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, excuse me. Ms. McKay has a question.
Does he agree to all these
Oh, yes, I think that's,
exceptions?
so,
So we get it on the record.
yes. You feel that the accessory dwelling unit, the conditions for accessory dwelling unit?
I'm sorry.
Are you aware of the accessory dwelling unit?
We believe we are. Okay, we did read it. We think we meet everything. Is there a concern?
All right, so your testimony is you meet all the criteria?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Ms. McKay.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else in the audience like to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, anybody with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, open the public meeting. Mr. Curry?
I'm in support of the application. I think it speaks for itself. And we see so many of these that there's also a request for a variance where this one isn't, so I think the applicants thought it through and stuck within the rules of the size, and it meets this is really what this accessory in-law unit's right in the heart of what it's for, to assist with family members. I'm good with it.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Ms. McKay.
I agree with Mr. Courier, and when these ordinances first came to be, the ADU came into existence because families of individuals with disabilities brought this forward. This is the reason they were created, and the family has met and probably exceeded some of the conditions that are placed on this, so I am very much in favor of this application.
I'm also in favor of the application for the reasons spoken of. Ms. Boris will be the voting, I should have called out, Ms. Boris is the voting member on this case. Any other? All right. Okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll do it.
Thank you, Mr. Lino.
Maybe Ms. Boris would like to make a motion.
Nope, it's all yours.
She doesn't want to. Okay, I'd like to make a motion on behalf of the Gogan Family Revocable Trust. Applicant is Kenneth Gogan, address 6 Lee Street. Sheet 64, Lot 141, requesting special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-15, Table 15-1, Item 3, for an accessory or in-law dwelling unit inside the existing house. This is listed in the table of uses. We have testimony that this will not create any additional traffic congestion or impair pedestrian safety. It will have no effect on that. It will have, the board believes it will not overload public water, drainage, or sewer, or other municipal systems. We have testimony that all the special regulations are fulfilled, and that this will not impair the integrity or be out of character with the neighborhood, or be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare of residents. Therefore, I make a motion to approve the special exception.
Seconded by Ms. McKay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's 5-0. Congratulations, motion's passed. All right, just be aware of that 30-day window of appeal, highly unlikely. Okay, thank you for coming. With that, I'll close the public meeting for case number 5 and open the public hearing for case number 6. Case number 6 is for Arion One Family Trust. Excuse me. Arlon,
Arlen.
sorry, I thought it was.
It's a tongue
So it's
twister.
Arlon One Family Trust, applicant is Aaron Arlon, 9 Lincoln Ave. Requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-31 to encroach 4 feet into the 6-foot required right side yard setback to maintain an existing 14 by 20 carports in the RA district. Welcome, give us your name and address for the record, and tell
Name
us
is
what's going on.
Aaron Arlen, 9 Lincoln Ave. So I have a carport there now, and when I went to get a permit for a shed, I found out that I should have had a permit for the carport also. So that's why it's existing. And the reason where it is because it's over the driveway. So I have a car and a boat that I always park in the driveway, and the carport's obviously to protect those vehicles. And the driveway is, you know, that neighborhood, everything's pretty close together, so.
Right.
So it's, I assume you have pictures, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have pictures and,
So it covers the driveway, basically, where the vehicles are parked.
anything else you'd like to say before?
No, that's really it. I know I met all the criteria for percentage usage and all that, so that wasn't an issue.
Any questions, Mr. Courier?
Just curious, how long has a carport been there?
Since last fall,
Fall of 2019 or 2018?
20, it's been there a year,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
And I was just curious, like, I hadn't really, I usually site walk all the sites and took a look at it, as just from the street, kind of a drive-by look. Is that cemented in the ground? I'm just curious how those posts are, how is that constructed?
So it's a metal frame. It's a really heavy-duty carport. It can withstand all the snow loads and everything else that you can throw at it. So what they have is, they're like 2-foot long. They look like rebar pins. There's 5 on each side. That's what comes with it, and they're just in the ground.
Oh,
They
okay.
don't come out. They have ridges on them to prevent them from
They're
coming
like,
out.
they call those hurricane anchors. Basically, it's supposed to be a one.
Yeah, they don't have the hooks on them,
Uh,
but they're not smooth, so
Okay, no.
once you put them in, they don't come out. And after the last windstorm, where a tree didn't survive in my yard, the carport was fine. It doesn't lift up at all or anything else.
Didn't end up lifting up and in your neighbor's yard then when the big wind came?
No, that wouldn't be good.
Okay. I didn't have any other questions.
Any other questions for the applicant? Again, this is Mr. Kanakis, right, for you in this case?
Yes,
Okay.
I have.
No other questions? All right, I think you can have a seat.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else in the audience like to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, anybody with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Courier?
I'm in support of the application. I struggled with this a bit just because of, it's close to the abutting property. However, I was kind of surprised when I took a look because it's not that big looking like those army tents or some other things, you kind of see right through it. And so it didn't, my sense was it wasn't very imposing looking, or may not be imposing looking, or, I thought it would be less apt to maybe, disrupt the daylight or something of the abutter. So I would certainly be sensitive to abutters' concerns. We don't have anything before us. So I take that, it's not a bother to the neighborhood. So I find support for it, but I could be swayed on the hardship issue, but I'll just leave it at that.
I support the application too, and again, it's not narrow, but narrow and deep, right? This is like in the backyard. Like, when I first saw this, real quickly, before I took the drive-by, I'm wondering if this is right next to the house next to it, and But then you get there, and like you said, it's almost like yeah, I'm looking for it, right? So I'm looking more at the garage, the building in the back than that. So, and, property seems to be neat and everything seems to be lined up. You got a gate there. So again, I don't see it like this big thing. So, again, for those reasons, and again, we don't have any other testimony, anything that kind of goes against, this incursion. So I'm in support of the application. Mr. Lionel?
I'm also in support of the application. I mean, usually when we have something like this, we say, well, gee, where else could you have put it that wouldn't require a variance? But in this case, there's no reasonable place other than where it is that it could be placed. It's right in line with the garage and the driveway. And it would be unreasonable to force the applicant to move it in order to meet the code requirements. So I can support the variance.
Thank you. Mr. Kanakis?
I'm in support as well for the reasons we all said, and just want to add that there's a lot of other structures in the neighborhood that are very tight on the setback, so it really is kind of in conformity with those other buildings.
Thank you. Mr. McKay?
Yeah, I concur with everything that's been said, and I certainly would not be in favor of asking to have it removed. The other point being that if the neighbors, since it's already in existence, if the abutters had a real issue, they would have been here, and it's been there a year. There's no issue, and so I'm in full support.
Okay. Anybody like to make a motion? Mr. Curry?
I'll make a motion on behalf of Arlen One Family Trust. The applicant is Aaron Arlen, and again, the address is 9 Lincoln Avenue. And the description is a variance request from Land Use Code 190-31 to encroach 4 feet into the 6-foot required right side yard setback to maintain an existing 14 by 20-foot carport. I believe the board finds this variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property, which is it's long and narrow. There's an existing garage and driveway, and that's all approximately 4 feet into the 6-foot required side yard setback. And so that the natural place, I guess I'd say, that this carport would situate is where the applicant has it, which is 4 feet into the 6-foot required right side yard setback. So I think the board finds that this is a reasonably feasible method for the applicant to pursue, which is a moderate-sized carport. I think the board finds it's within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. It will not adversely affect property values of surrounding parcels. The carport is not contrary to public interest, and substantial justice is served, so I make a motion to approve as the carport is currently situated.
Seconded by Mr. Lionel. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's 5-0. Congratulations. Application's been approved. Thank you for coming. With that, I'll close the public meeting for case number 6. Okay. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back in 5 minutes to continue on.
We're on. I don't think we were on. Okay, all right, we're on. Keep going.
Oh, no, if we weren't on,
We
then,
weren't on.
then she would
Okay.
have
Why don't you
to,
just read the case into the record?
yeah.
Okay. All right, sorry, ma'am. We had a little technical difficulty. All right, so I'm going to go back and just start, so just patient, I'm sorry. So we're going to open the public hearing for case number 7. I'm going to read that back into the record. The owner is Dwayne Smith, 11 Dinsmore Street, requesting the following variances from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3. 1, to encroach 11 feet into the 25-foot required front yard setback on Douglas Street, and 2, to encroach 6 feet into the 25-foot required front yard setback on Dinsmore Street. Both requests are to construct a 6-foot by 32-foot front farmer's porch. It's in the RA district. Welcome, and just give us your name and address again for the record.
Hi, my name is Mary Ann Picard, and I am here to help Dwayne Smith, the owner of 11 Dinsmore Street, with his
You need her
application to the
address, right?
zoning board.
What's your address, ma'am?
Oh, I'm sorry, my own address is
Yes.
24 Cabot Drive in Nashua.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. So Mr. Smith purchased the property at 11 Dinsmore Street 2 months ago on October 7th. It had fallen into disrepair over the last several years, and Mr. Smith and his son Anthony are now in the process of restoring the home. Mr. Smith's son Anthony and his wife Hannah will reside at 11 Dinsmore Street when the restoration is complete. The request is to add a farmer's porch to the front of the house at 11 Dinsmore Street. The old dilapidated porch was unsafe. It has been removed, and the new porch will be 6 feet by 32 feet. As you can see from your packet and from the photos presented here tonight, that this request is in keeping with the style and spirit of the neighborhood. You can see that neighbors support the project and that it doesn't conflict with the explicit or implicit purpose of the ordinance, and it doesn't interfere with any public rights. It is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. Substantial justice will be done to the property owner by granting the variances. The owner will benefit from a new porch, replacing the unsafe, dilapidated one. Doing so will not harm the public or any individuals. A new porch will not diminish the value of surrounding properties. In fact, we believe the new porch will have a positive effect on neighboring properties. The neighbors are in agreement, as you can see by the letters of support in your packets. The property at 11 Dinsmore Street is a private residence which already had a porch in the same location at the front of the house. The entire home is being restored, which will bring it back up to North End standards and is increasing the values in the neighborhood. Thank you for your consideration, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Lionel?
This is just a matter of personal curiosity. Now, Mr. Smith, his address is listed as 25 Cabot,
Yes,
and you live at 24.
yes.
Okay. You're neighbors of mine, I'm at 19. I'm just, is Mr. Smith intending to move there?
His son Anthony, with his wife Hannah, will reside in the property.
Oh, okay. That's fine, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Guess we're all set.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that'd like to speak in favor of the application? Okay, I have some letters here, and I'll just read the letter in, and then people that have signed in favor of this application. So, dear members of the zoning board, I support the approval of the zoning board for 2 variances at 11 Dinsmore Street. The owner, Dwayne Smith, and his son will construct a farmer's porch to replace the old porch that was in disrepair. Dwayne Smith and his son are restoring the property at 11 Dinsmore Street to its original beauty. Having a porch they can now use will allow them to enjoy their home, and it will be keeping with the style and spirit of the neighborhood. I believe the proposed porch design is suitable and will enhance both the property and the neighborhood. I'm urging the board to approve the variances requested. We have Paul Benninger and Patricia Benninger at 12 Dinsmore Street. We have Mr. William Ackley at 12 Brookline Street. We have Joyce Kelly at 14 Brookline Street. We have George Coop at 15 Brookline Street. Those are folks in favor of this application. Anybody else in the audience that'd like to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none. Anybody with questions, concerns, or opposition with this application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, open the public meeting.
Who's voting on this one?
Ms. Boris is voting on this one. I'm generally in favor of the application. I think, again, I don't know when the house was built, probably should ask that, but it probably predates some zoning. I don't know what time it is, but again, I think when looking at the house in the neighborhood, and in looking around that block and across the street, you know, some of the houses are pretty much almost right up on a, you know, not the sidewalk, but pretty close to the street. I think this porch, I believe, again, it would fit with the character of the neighborhood. I think it would fit in with this home. I think it will, again, I don't think there's any negative, I don't find anything a negative detractor that would make me want to vote against the application, is guess what I'm saying. Mr. Lionel.
I'm also in support of the application. Going around the neighborhood, I noticed a number of other nearby houses had wide porches, and sometimes a farmer-style porch or whatever going across the width of the house. And it was clear that this house at 11 Dinsmore at one point had some sort of smaller front porch or step covering that had been removed. And I think this is a perfectly reasonable thing to request.
Mr. Correa.
I too am in support of it. You know, when I first got the application, I thought, oh boy, a North End house. We've seen these over the years where there's an encroachment in the front with salvo of negative opposition. A lot of it, I think, with merit, but I was persuaded when I drove up and down Dinsmore, because I concurred with the application that there's many houses nearby that this is in character with, especially right across the street and up the hill just a little bit. I think some of the houses that have porches are probably closer to the street than this is. The abutting house, like that's downhill a little, has a accessory structure that's kind of close to the street. So this proposal is not, in my opinion, at all out of character of the neighborhood, but is in character of the neighborhood. And I appreciate the positive testimony. I mean, and the fact that the color pictures, that's what I saw when I site walked it today, except it wasn't that sunny.
Any other discussion? Ms. McKay?
I too am in support, and it's nice to see homes get renovated back into a condition that not only benefits the home and the homeowner, but it benefits the entire neighborhood. And it's in keeping and in character, and I too am in support.
Any other comments? Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
How about I do this?
Okay,
I haven't done this in a while.
go for it.
You want me to record, or you? Go ahead.
I've already written what I see. That's why I come early. Okay, I would, and please excuse me, I haven't done this in a while, as my peers will attest to. I would like to make a motion to approve the application for an area variance brought by Dwayne Smith, owner at 11 Dinsmore Street, sheet 64, lot 42, requesting the following variances from Land Use Code, section 190-16, table 16-3, 1, to encroach 11 feet into the 25-foot required front yard setback on Douglas Street, and 2, variance to encroach 6 feet into the 25-foot required front yard setback on Dinsmore Street. Both requests to construct a 6 by 32-foot farmer's porch in the front. The zoning, it's in the RA zoning district. The board believes that a variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property, and the benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance. That it is within the spirit and the intent of the ordinance, it will not adversely affect the property values of surrounding parcels. The board feels it will actually enhance the neighborhood values. It is not contrary to the public interest, and substantial justice will be granted, served, thank you very much. And so I make the motion to approve both variances.
Ms. Boris had her hand up. Ms. Boris seconded it. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? That's 5-0. Congratulations. Just be aware of that 30-day window of appeal, but again, good luck. With that, I'll close the public meeting for case number 7 and open the public hearing for case number 8. I'll give the gentleman just a few seconds to clear the board.
Oh, yeah, that's why I do really come early. I write up these sheets. I know better. What's this one?
Okay, thank you. I'd like to open the public hearing for case number 8. It's for John and Kathleen Meehan, 56 Pioneer Drive. Requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-192, Section C, to exceed a maximum curb cut with 14 feet existing, 46 feet proposed. It's in the R30 district. Welcome. Just give us your name and address, and tell us what you're trying to do.
Good evening. My name is Jack Meehan, and I'm with my wife Kathy. We're both
You could raise that instead of going down, raise the whole thing up. There you go.
we're both at 56 Pioneer Drive in Nashua. We're here tonight to look for a variance to pave with asphalt an existing stone parking area that is adjacent to our existing driveway. We've lived on this property for 23 years, and that stone driveway parking area has been there since we've lived in the house. So after 23 years, it's time to pave the regular driveway. In doing so, we would like to pave the existing stone driveway that is adjacent to the main driveway. For a couple of reasons. We have graded and stoned that area several times since we've lived there. In the winter, the stones go all over the place with the snow blower and the plow. In the spring, I've got to bring it all back, grade it, flatten it. And in the summer, with the vegetation growing through it, it becomes a maintenance issue, so we would like to pave that area. We have 5 children, several vehicles, so it's also convenient pulling in and out of the garage, having the ability to park a couple of cars down there. So that's the crux of our request this evening.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Currier?
It was hard for me to grasp when I looked recently with the snow on it, but the existing driveway, it probably says here, how wide is the existing paved driveway at the curb cut?
Sure. So at the top of the hill, it's 20 foot wide.
Yeah.
When you come down the one side, it does come in a little bit, so at the curb, it's 14 feet.
Okay.
So we would like to make that even all the way down, so that would be 20 foot.
Okay.
And in the stone area, we actually want to pave that 15 foot. I'm not sure where the 46 came from on the note. So if you take the 20 foot of existing and the 15 foot we want to come in on the stone driveway, it's actually 35 foot along the curb.
Does that make sense to you, Mr. Falk?
Yeah, I don't know if I don't think we had this drawing before we advertised it, so I think we did the best we could with the measurements we had from the photo and things, so.
So would there be, like, where the curb cut is, if this were approved, you're saying that the proposal is 35-foot wide curb cut?
No, so,
Or is it still thinner, but because it widens up, that gets factored into it?
yeah, sure. So, maybe I didn't explain it, but the main driveway coming down would be 20 foot
Okay.
to the road. The stone driveway would come in another 15 foot. Now, there is a 6-foot landscaping bed between the curb and the stone driveway.
So any cars in the stone driveway come in, shall we call it the regular driveway and turn right?
Correct.
Okay. I just have a question, I guess, for Mr. Falk when he's done. So it sounds like the curb cut is going to become 20 if,
Correct.
and then because the driveway is within the front yard, or the proposed paved driveway is within the front yard setback, that's
Still
what,
considered,
that's what drives it to 35.
right.
Okay.
That photo will
Oh,
probably
this says it.
explain.
Yeah, this is what you don't see because of the snow.
Sure.
It's this right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the curb cut itself is probably not the issue, it's the overall width in the front yard setback.
Yep.
So, sir, what was confusing to me, and we got this drawing here, and it said proposed asphalt 15 feet by 30 feet. So I was looking at this as like, you were looking for a 30-foot deep additional driveway, plus you want another 20 feet. To me, that comes up to 50, but I'm trying to understand what, from the one edge of the driveway, you know, and I think Mr. Curry's been talking about that, just want to again be clear and hear it again.
Sure.
From the left side, if I'm facing the house, left side of the driveway, the existing driveway, or where you want to bring out to the curb, that, whatever that's going to be, all the way to the end of the new asphalt, to the right side of your property, what's the total width that you're asking for?
35 feet.
Okay, okay, thank you. So
welcome.
you're looking just for a 15-foot kind of head-in driveway?
Correct.
Okay. And that's going to be, how wide?
30.
So 30 by 50, okay. So
Correct.
30 wide by 50, okay. So 30 deep if you were looking at the house. 30 deep.
Correct, if you're
50
looking up
wide.
that way, yes.
Okay.
I am still very confused, and I think there's a terminology problem here. We have this diagram here.
I'll just help you out. It'll make it kind of clear. This is going to be 30 feet.
I don't think that's what he intended, though.
That's what he's saying right now.
I know, but I don't believe it.
15, and then that's 20 feet. That's the total
All right,
of
look,
30
may
feet.
I have this? I'm going to, okay. So we have this diagram that you provided, and if I look at this pink rectangle here that you've drawn, and it's 15 feet, you know, in the distance between the street and the house, and 30 feet long towards the next house.
So we are not paving the existing stone driveway, we're not paving all the way out. We're only going in 15 feet.
All right, so it's 15 feet from
Yes.
the existing driveway towards the next house.
Yes,
And how,
30.
oh, and so it's going to be, so this diagram does not represent what you're planning on doing.
Okay.
Because if it did, if,
Okay.
well, please, only the person at the microphone. So basically, this rectangle really should be flipped 90 degrees.
Well, it
The
really, it doesn't.
original packet, you should have the drawing from the paving company that shows exactly what,
Well, I mean, the one from the paving company really looks the same. I can't tell which of these is 15 and which one is 30.
sure, fair enough. So the head-in parking would be 15, and then looking up toward the house would be 30.
I see.
So again, I think total width of asphalt
It's 35 feet.
is 35 feet, right? So
Just,
That is correct.
my, looking at the non-snow covered picture, I think that 6-foot landscaped area kind of softens the look of a lot of parking lot. If this were approved, would you be open to a stipulation of maintaining that 6-foot landscaped area? And the reason I say is if on writing, 35-foot is granted, you could just pave 35 feet all the way up to the street, which would have quite a large asphalt look about it, which
Right.
is perhaps, at least in my opinion, wouldn't look as nice as it does with a landscaped area, kind of, blending a bit with the neighborhood. Okay, just a thought.
Yeah, so you would want us to maintain that 6-foot landscape area?
Well, I'm asking you if is that a stipulation that you're okay with, or because to me, that softens the overage of parking and is different than just a 35-foot wide curb cut.
Right.
And so that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement, and certainly in the winter, if you went by, you saw where they plow, it's on that 6-foot landscape area, so I wouldn't want that to be paved that close to the curb anyway, so.
Mr. Lino?
What is usually there is a city right-of-way, 9 feet or so from the street. At least there is at my house. Although I landscape that, it doesn't actually belong to me. Is that the case at your house as well?
I'm not familiar with what that right-of-way would be, to be honest with you.
Mr. Falk, do you have any?
I don't have any of that information here with me.
Does it seem likely that it's a uniform 9 feet?
Most likely, we see most houses have anywhere from 5 or 6 to 9 or 12 feet, just depends. It could be different from one neighbor to another, or one side of the street to another. And we'd have to see a plan for the entire subdivision to see what it is, but I would estimate it's somewhere in that 5 to 9 or 10 foot range. That's what most of them are. If it's a 50-foot wide right-of-way, the street might be 28, and there's space for either a sidewalk or. But it all depends on whereabouts the pavement is located within the 50-foot right-of-way. It can waver between that 50 feet, so.
So I guess my point is that there's a possibility that this new pavement would be within the city right-of-way.
If it's from the curb of the street, if there's a 6-foot flower bed, it's possible. I don't know where the exact location of their property line is to the beginning of that perpendicular asphalt area. You know what I mean? I'm not sure where the property line
Right.
lies within that area.
I would think, I would be more, I'm not really comfortable with this application as it is, but if we were to approve it, I would think that we should stipulate that no part of the city right-of-way be paved. Now, I know that a lot of people, they just go ahead and do this sort of thing, and they never come before us for a variance. I have a neighbor who's done that, and nobody seems to care. But here we are, and I don't know what the city feels about people paving into their right-of-way that's not part of the existing driveway.
Well, I can't really answer for DPW or the street department, but I think they're generally not in favor of people working in their right-of-way, because it's something that there may be infrastructure underneath it. There could be water, sewer lines, utility lines, gas lines. If it's not built to city standards, then it may not last as long as a city road would. And they all get paved, they're all on a cycle of being paved every, 20 to 40 years, so that's really best answered by DPW.
Yeah. So if we were to approve it, we might put in a stipulation that no part of the pavement be on city right-of-way, and it would be the applicant's responsibility to ensure that that's the case. I mean, he could
reasonable-
move that 30 feet up a couple of feet
Shift it up a
if
little bit
necessary.
possibly, yeah. As long as the board feels that that's reasonable. You know, if that's a stipulation that you all want to support, if you think that's reasonable, then
And what do you think, Mr. Meehan?
Well, the one other factor here is that if you've been by the house, it does go up a hill.
Yeah.
So if I move that up, I'm now going up a hill at an angle. I would probably opt to, instead of going 30-foot wide, go 25-foot wide, or whatever that area would require.
it's not that
Mr. Correa?
I guess the thought, I mean, I don't know, you know, about the potential 9-foot right-of-way by the city. I guess I wasn't, if this were approved, concerned about that. I mean, my sense is the city wouldn't be expanding a road like Pioneer Drive, because it's just kind of like, in a way, a cul-de-sac, and I just don't think that would be happening. And also, given the topography, you know, if the city were gonna utilize that for something like a sidewalk, I mean, it'd just be a lot of challenge there. So it just didn't seem to me to be an issue if this were approved. And, you know, and it wouldn't block, if the lower edge of the driveway were on that right-of-way and the city needed it for something, well, the city owns it, and that would take precedence. I see it. So I didn't see that, I don't see that as an issue, but that's just me.
So you're saying that, that in your mind, the applicant would proceed at their own risk, and if for some reason the city came along, they understand that they may take whatever is theirs, they may just take it away.
Right. Well, whatever is the city's.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But use as it
Whatever
needs.
pavement was sitting on the city right away, if they needed it, they would just, they would end up removing that.
Right, that's what, just like if it were, if there wasn't a landscape section and there was just a 35-foot wide driveway going back, that would be the same thing. The city, if it's 9 feet back say the city owns, you know, that's 9 by 35 feet of driveway that's on top of what the city owns, you know. So I see it as either way, but that's just me.
there's a lot of things in the city right away. There's picket fences, landscaping, little stone walls, mailboxes, basketball goals, other landscape features for the most part. They're pretty much located in most all subdivisions, most all streets. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a seat. Anybody else like to speak in favor for this application? Seeing none, anybody with questions, concerns, or opposition? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Correa.
Well, I'm cautiously supportive of this application. I mean, when I saw the 44 feet, I was concerned with the application. You know, and in looking at it, and having what came in the mail, it was confusing to me, but thanks to you and Mr. Lionel, that's been clarified. So my thoughts, you know, I think of, you know, we've had, you know, numerous requests over the years for wide driveways, and one of the mitigations sometimes this board asks for is, can you skinny down that curb cut and then widen it up when you're back off the street a little? And in a sense, given the topography and what's been there for a couple of decades, that's what this is. So to me, that 6-foot landscape section is very valuable. I think it's valuable for the owners because they can store snow there and it softens the look of the lot of driveway. So I'm okay with this application with the stipulation that the 6-foot wide landscaped area, which is what has been referred to, we see a picture of it, and I think that describes it well enough because we have the picture on record, it is maintained. I mean, another benefit of that is you don't get the runoff rushing into the street. It goes, salt, this and that. It's kind of an ecological way to do it because it absorbs it on their own soil versus, running it in the street, down the street. So I'm okay with it, with the stipulation that the 6-foot landscaped area is maintained. And I certainly want to hear other opinions because I could be swayed around if others thought it was too much.
Ms. McKay?
I concur with Mr. Courier, and because of the snow and because, I don't know, I like the computer or gadgets, I Google mapped, and I looked, and I could see exactly what it was. So in my mind, I see all of the landscaping, and I see that you would go up, and then you would make that right, and it was set back. And so I didn't really have the same concerns maybe over the footage. I had the visual. I'm a visual person, and so that's what I had. And it makes sense. And I agree with you, the runoff will go into those flowers. And as far as the city right away too, I guess it is all different. I think at my house, it's only like 6 or 7 feet. It's very, it varies. And yet, to Mr. Falk's comment, there's the basketball hoop down the street from me, right, almost down the road. And that absolutely is in the city right away. But those kids have used that thing for years, so have a lot of kids. So that kind of happens, and I think the owners, like any of us, just take some of that responsibility. But I do support the application, and I do like that bed is there, but as the owner stated, he uses it, or the plows use it to push the snow. And so I don't think he's going to get rid of it. But I could agree, I mean, I don't have a problem with the stipulation that it remains.
Thank you.
I agree with Ms. Courier as well. As long as the 6-foot stipulation to maintain the landscaped area stays in.
Okay. Thank you. I'll support the application with Mr. Courier's stipulation. Mr. Lionel?
Now that I understand better what's being requested, I appreciate that the applicant actually came and asked for a variance because so many homeowners would just go ahead and pave it and not say boo. So I will support the application.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Does anybody want to make a motion? Mr. Courier?
I'll make a motion on behalf of John and Kathleen Meehan of 56 Pioneer Drive, and the request is a variance from Land Use Code 190-192C to exceed the maximum curb cut width. 14 feet is existing, and I'm clarifying that 35 feet is proposed, and the design before us is 20 feet is proposed at the road, and then there's I'm also going to make this approval to have a stipulation that the current 6-foot wide landscaped area on the right side of the existing driveway remain, and that on the back side, shall we say, of that 6-foot landscaped area is where the driveway opens up to the full 35-foot width. Because, so the existing 14-foot wide is proposed to be 20 feet wide, and then after the 6-foot landscaped area, it opens up to an additional 15 feet to 35 feet wide. And I believe that the board believes that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property. Again, there's a topography challenge, shall we say, going up the the hill to the driveway makes it convenient and perhaps arguably necessary to have some parking space on the right-hand side to accommodate, I think what the board finds is a family quantity of cars on the property. I think with the stipulation that's within the spirit and intent of the ordinance, I think the board finds it'll not adversely affect property values of surrounding parcels. It's not contrary to public interest and substantial justice is served. So again, I make a motion to approve with the stipulation that the 6-foot current landscaped area remains.
Who had the hand up first? Mr. McKay, second motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's 5-0. Congratulations, motion's passed. Just be aware there's a 20-day window of appeal. Okay. Other than that, you're all set. Thank you for coming. With that, I'll close the public meeting for case number 8 and open the public hearing for case number 9. Okay,
Well, it was 10, and it's now 9, because one of them has been,
well, you're the last case, and one of the cases come up. This is for John Kreutzer and David Kreutzer, Joan Kreutzer and David Kreutzer of 39 Gilman Street. They are requesting the following: a special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-47 for a major home occupation for an electrical consulting business, and 2, variance from Land Use Code Section 190-47, Section B, subsection 3, to allow a business to be located in a detached shed where the use must be carried out strictly in principal building. It's in the RB district. Welcome, and give us your name and address, please.
My name is Dave Kreutzer. I live at 39 Gilman Street on the corner of Richter and Gilman. It's a corner property just down the road from Roland's Restaurant. About 2 years ago, the board granted me permission to place a shed on my property for purposes of storage. I had a lot to store. The shed is 16 feet by 24 feet by 14 and a half feet high. It's been there now 2 years. As I go inside the shed, I have an electrical extension cord running from the garage next to the shed into the shed to provide me light and to provide me some power for a couple pieces of equipment I have in there. These equipments are used for testing prototypes that I have built for me. A little of my background. I'm an inventor. I have over 22 U.S. patents and over 60 foreign patents. Some of the devices that I've invented are in your electronic devices that you're using, your cars and things of that nature and stuff at the homes. I build these devices and provide them to various industries, IBM, Tyco, to name a few. So what I basically do is I get an idea or ideas. I patent the ideas. I then build prototypes. I usually have them built locally. I then have those prototypes tested. So I usually test them in some equipment that I have, like a humidity temperature chamber and a thermal chamber. The last invention was tested in my basement in a house I had on Thorndike Street. And then what that happens after that is I usually have customers that are interested in technology, and then I'll go with them to set up pilot production in an industrial area. In this area, 2 times in Amherst and once in Manchester, New Hampshire, near Valley Street. So now I have a couple of new ideas, and I'd like to go forward with them. What I looked at was the fact that the extension cord I'm using, the garage is an old garage. The electrical wiring is also old. So if I add additional equipment to that wiring, and I will be concerned about that. So I determined that I talked with different people. It made sense to run a 100 amp line from the telephone pole directly to the shed. So I had a contractor put in a box, and then the city electrical inspector came over, and he looked at it for inspection, and he asked me what's the equipment for. And I said it's for testing prototypes. And he says, and what are the prototypes for? I said, well, they go to customers. He says, well, then you need to talk with the board and request a variance for commercial zoning. So I'm here tonight to request that variance for commercial zoning. What started out as a extension cord is now at this point.
Okay, anything else, Dad?
Oh, yes, on the property, when clients interested in the technology, they visit me twice, usually. Once to see the prototypes and once to see the test data. The next time I'm together with them, it's when we go start looking to set up an industrial area. On my property, the driveway runs from the side of the house, past the garage, right to the shed. So there's plenty of parking there for up to 6 cars. There's usually just 1 car they visit me with. Now, the shed has been there for 2 years. No problem with everybody. The neighborhood's fine. So I don't see any effect on the area, the aesthetics of the area, or anything else like that. There's nothing noisy there. And for me, it's nice to walk out in the morning with my cup of coffee over to the shed and sit down and think. So, works out well for me, too. Everything.
So are you doing your work right now out of that shed, or is it something that you want to do in the future?
I would like to start building prototypes. I've got ideas, and I've submitted them for patents.
Right, what I'm asking is physically right now, today, are you working out of that shed right now, today?
No, but in about a month or 2, I'd like to start testing. And if I plug in multiple pieces of equipment, that could be a problem.
All right. So what is that shed being used for right now?
Storage.
Storage, okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Correa?
Just wanted to clarify, I think you said it, but you're prototyping and you're inventing, or prototyping, I guess I call it, will that create noise? Could that create a disturbance to the neighbors?
The prototypes, I do mostly electronic devices. So the prototypes consist of going to a PC board house in Nashua to get the boards made, and then a molding house to get the housings made, and then they assemble it, and all I do is the testing, basically.
Okay, so the testing isn't like a chitty chitty bang bang clickety clack?
No, there's a temperature humidity chamber, very quiet. There's a thermal chamber, very quiet.
All right. I take that as wouldn't disturb the neighbors.
And again, per your application, it would be just you and your wife that would do any work there?
Well, my wife would be my partner.
Right, but
Obviously.
it would be only 2 people.
That is correct.
Okay.
But when I get to the pilot production level, I employ people in the area. So this time, I would probably look at Nashua, because it's close to the house, and employ people from Nashua.
To employ people, though, they're not coming to your home, to the shed
No,
to
this
work.
would be in a
Okay,
pilot, this would be in the pilot production
Sure.
industrial facility.
right. I understand. I just want to make sure that you weren't trying to actually now do something there, too. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Good. All right, sir, you can have a seat.
Thank you.
So there is nobody else in the audience, so there is nobody else to speak in favor or in opposition with the application, so I'm going to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Lionel.
I have no objection to this whatsoever. It sounds perfectly reasonable, and the sort of things he's doing will not disturb the the neighborhood, and shouldn't have any noticeable effect outside his shed, assuming we doesn't overload something in his testing. But I, you know, encourage that, you know, people do this sort of thing, so.
I echo Mr. Lionel's feelings in that I don't think it would be at all a disruption to the neighborhood. I mean, when you see major home occupation, sometimes the proposals before us very much would disturb the neighborhood, but I think this electronic nature of this business and the applicant and his partner is, you know, it isn't a problem for the neighborhood, and it lets him hopefully become the next Dean Kamen.
I don't have any, you know, strict opposition to it. I would just ask, just a question, with the variance, is there any concern about the day that the applicant decides to move away or sell? Would there be any issues with that?
Yeah, that was actually something I had thought about earlier, was that we should put in a stipulation that, that the variance, that when this, when the applicant is no longer using the shed for this purpose, that this variance goes away. Because otherwise variances run with the land. I mean, the special exception is one thing, but the variance would run with the land, and we would not want to make this a permanent variance. Other people's thoughts on that?
I was, I guess, thinking along the lines of a stipulation where there wouldn't be external employees coming to the site. Now, Mr. Boucher asked the question, and the testimony was that's not what the proposal is, that when it gets to that stage, it's off-site. You know, as time goes on and, you know, inevitably another owner takes ownership, my thought was if that wasn't stipulated, it's like, hey, I've got a shed and I've got a major home occupation and I can, you know, run any kind of business out of there, really, which could intensify the use of the land beyond what it is. So I was thinking of stipulating that there wouldn't be external employees other than the owners, the occupants of the residence. I'll leave it at that.
I agree with that. Again, I'm in favor of what the applicant wants to do. I'm just looking for the future. And maybe this is a bad example. Let's say we do that, and it's just the owner. But let's say the owner has, I don't know, maybe it doesn't make sense, motorcycle repair or something, and that can get the motorcycle inside. But now it becomes, got all these motorcycles hanging around, I'm running this. I know there's some noise ordinances and all that. So I don't want here to start defining what can be or can't be in there. I think the only thing I'm concerned about, and again, I support what the applicant wants to do. I'm just concerned about the future, you know, whether or not are we leaving a door open for something like that to happen. I think you're looking at it like I'm looking at it, like this is a good thing, and we know that this applicant is what they want to do, and that's not what they want to do. But again, if the variance is there, I don't know what could happen. Mr. Lionel?
Well, there's two parts of this. There's the special exception, which enables the use of major home occupation.
Right.
And that is not permanent, is my understanding.
If the use goes away, then, you know, if they move,
Then that special exception goes away.
then it's gone.
Right. Now, the variance to say that to allow a business to be located in the shed, that would stay with the land.
That would.
Unless we put a stipulation on it. And I think it would be reasonable to say, stipulate that when the shed is no longer being used for, you know, when the special exception goes away, the variance goes away as well, or something like that.
Yeah, that's, I'm guessing the applicant's okay with that? I mean, if they move to some other location and they can set up shop at their new house somewhere, I guess and then if a new applicant may not be doing what a new owner may not be an inventor doing the things that he's doing, so they'd have to come back here anyway, so that's a reasonable stipulation.
I guess I could be fine with that.
Ms. McKay?
When you make this stipulation, could you tie it to the sale of the property? Because once you sell the property, then whoever buys it, the likelihood of selling to another inventor,
We don't typically,
I don't know how you tag that.
you just tag it to the life of the special exception.
Yeah. I think that's what we're
Okay.
saying. Yeah, I know what you're saying. And you're trying to accomplish the same thing. I think what Mr. Lionel is saying is we'll do the same thing, and we'll do the same thing without, stipulating any of these.
No,
other-
whatever's easier, whatever makes more logical common sense.
I mean, because if you tie it to a sale, well, let's say he keeps the property and then rents it to somebody who's doing motorcycle repair.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, understood.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? No? Does anybody want to make a motion?
Steve, you're an electrical guy.
Yeah, I'm a software guy. I did some electronics. I'd love to find out what it is what he does. That sounds fascinating. Anyway, I'd like to make a motion. This is the special exception. We'll do the special exception and the variance separately, because they are separate. Special exception. Owner, Joan Walkreutzer and David Kreutzer, address 39 Gilman Street, sheet 94, lot 96, requesting a special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-47 for a major home occupation for an electrical and consulting business. This is in the RB zone. This is listed in the table of uses. We have testimony that it will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. We have no evidence that it will overload public water, drainage, sewer, or other municipal systems. Any special regulations are fulfilled. There are no special regulations that we're aware of, okay. And the board believes this will not impair integrity or be out of character with the neighborhood or be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare of residents. Therefore, make a motion to approve the special exception.
Did you have the
Seconded by
stipulation?
Ms.
No, the stipulation goes on the variance,
okay.
not on the special exception.
So, Ms. Boris, second the motion. Is there any discussion now? We good? Okay. All those in favor? Okay, that's 5-0.
Okay. Now. Do you need a moment?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion on behalf of owner, Joan Walkreutzer and David Kreutzer, address 39 Gilman Street, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-47B3 to allow business to be located in a detached shed where the use must be carried out strictly in the principal building. This is in the RB zone. The board finds the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property, and the benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance. The board believes that this is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance, that it will not adversely affect the property values of surrounding parcels. It is not contrary to the public interest, and substantial justice will be served. The board also makes a stipulation that this variance will become void when the special exception we just voted on goes away. Is that a reasonable wording?
I believe so.
Okay. Given that and the stipulation, I make a motion to approve the area variance.
Second by Mr. Currier. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's 5-0. Congratulations, sir. The motion passes. Again, there's a 30-day window of appeal, but there's nobody here, so good luck. All right, thank you. All right. With that, I'll close the public meeting for case number 9. We have some meeting minutes.
Yeah.
We'll give Ms. McKay a chance to catch up.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the stipulation was written in there, that it expires with the special exception.
All right, so we have meeting minutes for November 12th. Mr. Kanakis will vote on this. Is there anybody that has any comments, questions, concerns with these meeting minutes?
I didn't read the minutes. I'm planning on abstaining, but I still think there could be a quorum here without my vote on these.
Okay. All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the November 12th meeting minutes.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lionel, all in favor? Well, so no, what happens is that Mr. Courier is
If
going to
he's
be abstaining.
abstaining, then they can both vote.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that right?
Yeah, she can vote.
Yeah.
Okay, all
If
right.
he's abstaining, that means he's like
Okay.
stepping down, so.
Okay, all right, sorry about that. So, so all those in favor? It's 5-0. All right, so the minutes pass. This was just for our information?
Yes. There's, I think the board got this color,
Yes.
just an invitation for anybody to go if they'd like to go.
Okay, so this is the Conservation Protection Celebration of Sullivan Farm on December 20th at 4 p.m. The Hunt Memorial Building, 6 Main Street in Nashua. Before we adjourn for the year, I'm gonna step ahead just a little bit, just food for thought. I know you'll forget about holidays. Once the board convenes with all its full members, the earliest meeting that we get it, just so people start thinking about, there'll be elections for officers. Okay, so I just want everybody to just start thinking about that and whether or not, what you'd be interested in. So just food for thought, okay? Because I know that sometimes our time is limited with the 5 full-time members here, getting them lined up. So the first time that happens, we'll have that discussion, and it will follow our rules where we'll have to do some nominations and then, confirm that at another meeting, okay? With that, I just want to wish everybody Merry Christmas.
Carter has something to say.
I was just gonna say that there's no regional impact because we don't have a case
Right.
agenda yet, so just FYI. I'll email an agenda out when we have one.
Yeah, I wrote no agenda, so there was,
Didn't mean to interrupt, but just
right.
didn't want it to pass over.
Has anything teed up on the agenda yet?
Nothing yet. We won't actually advertise that until December 31st, so we still have quite a bit of time. We have like an extra 2 weeks in the schedule.
Yay.
Sorry, JP.
Oh, that's okay. Okay.
I know you're.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, anything else? All right, well, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Lionel. Mr. Kanakis, all those in favor? It's 5-0. We're adjourned at 8:57.
Who seconded it?
Thank you.
Steve?
I did.
That's what I thought, but then he said.